Welcome to Tax Watch, which is a monthly program presented by the concerned taxpayers of Duval County about matters of interest to the community at large, and in particular with reference to community budgeting, waste, fraud, corruption, nepotism, and general shenanigans that go on down at City Hall. In our opening segment this evening, I'd like to talk to you about the budgeting process that the city recently completed on September 28th. Some of you may have been down at City Hall. There were several hundred, in fact, who did make the effort to go down to City Hall and talk about the billion-dollar budget that the city had proposed. And I want to say that after a heroic effort, 70 people or more spoke to the City Council, and your voice was heard when $42,000 was slashed out of this budget. Yes, that's sarcasm. The only thing that really came out of the budget as part of this process, apart from moving around some contingency funds, was that the Jaguar tickets that had gone into the budget just a month before came back out. I want to say that for this next budget cycle, which is a cycle that will be voted on in September of 2011 by a new city council, half of whose members are up for either re-election or for election by from term-limited members. We need to have not just a different process, we need to have a different city council. In our next segment, coming up in November, it is my intention, along with the officers of the concerned taxpayers, to bring to you the names of those people that you shouldn't be voting for in the upcoming spring elections. Now, for the balance of this program, we have a congressional candidate here named Mike Yost, who's running in the 3rd Congressional District. And I would like to come back to him after a short break.
I always pay more than the minimum balance on my credit card.
I just opened an education IRA for my kids.
I never invest more money than I can use.
How are you saving for your future? Find out more great ways to save for your future and choose to save.
Welcome back to Tax Watch, the Concerned Taxpayers Public Affairs program. I'm here in this segment with Joe Andrews, who is on our board, Rod Morrill, and Mike Yost, who is the Republican candidate for Congressional District 3, running against longtime incumbent Corrine Brown. Mr. Yost, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running against this 9-term incumbent in what is by many people considered to be an extremely safe seat for her?
Well, first of all, I am Mike Yost, and I am the Republican nominee for the United States House of Representatives here in the 3rd District. I do not come from a political background. Never ran for office, never had any desire to run for office until last year. I began looking around and seeing what was going on in the country as far as legislation that was coming out of Congress. I saw a very dangerous pattern that was taking this country down a path of European socialism. And I realized that I couldn't sit still and couldn't let these things continue to happen. I began looking in this district, and I found some very disturbing things. First of all, here in this 3rd Congressional District, it is ranked 432 out of 435 congressional districts nationwide in terms of poverty and unemployment. We're almost dead last. Also, on a state level, out of the 25 congressional districts, it is dead last. We do have serious concerns here in this district that Representative Brown has abjectly failed to address. She likes to talk a little bit about her $660 million worth of earmarks that she's brought into this district, but the fact of the matter is over 70% of those have gone to projects outside this district or out of state. So what I realized is that there are some serious things that need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed very quickly, or we're going to continue that slide into poverty and unemployment in this district. And that's not a way to solve the problems, in my opinion.
So you're challenging her motto that Corrine delivers.
Well, I don't see where she's delivered a whole lot except more poverty and more unemployment.
Mr. Andrews, you have a question for Mr. Yost?
Yes. First, let me say thank you for being with us. And let's start with a question of particular interest to Floridians. What is your position on offshore drilling and, taking account of our energy needs and the recent disaster that we had. Can you expand on that a little?
Sure, be glad to. First of all, the Department of Energy was created for one reason and one reason alone, and that was to reduce America's dependence on foreign oil. At that particular point in time, we were producing 70% of our own energy. 30% of our oil needs were coming from foreign sources. Today, those numbers have exactly flipped. We are now purchasing 70% of our oil from foreign nations. 30% of our oil is produced here domestically. We must increase our own domestic production of energy here in this country. That is a requirement, I think, from an economic standpoint as well as from a national security standpoint. As far as offshore drilling is concerned, the technologies today have really and truly changed so much that you're not going to see these derricks or these platforms setting out in the Gulf of Mexico drilling for oil. They go out, drill long enough, and have those drill ships in place long enough. And the technology then puts pumping equipment down on the ocean floor. So these types of things that are fears to many of the environmentalists or to many of the people that are talking about ruining the shoreline of Florida are really unfounded. Most of the drilling that we would be seeing off the coast of Florida would actually be for natural gas, more so than oil. These are the things that I think we need to, these are energy sources we need to pursue and pursue very aggressively. Even in spite of the fact that we saw a very severe accident happen out in the Gulf, fortunately they've been able to remove that blowout preventer. They're going to determine what caused it and what happened so that technology itself will be able to prevent that from happening again in the near future. So I think we need to pursue any and all energy sources that we have here in this country.
Agreed.
Rod?
Yes, you also take a very clear position on your website and the interviews that you've had about illegal immigrants, and there's been employing of them and how to make our borders secure. Even our own courthouse had trouble with illegal immigrants working on it. So I guess how far do you go? How do you get there? How do you deal with the illegal immigrants?
Well, the illegal immigrant issue in this country today is a $300 billion a year cost to taxpayers in terms of benefits that we provide to them and in terms of what we're actually seeing from a federal and state level. This is a very serious concern because these people have absolutely put nothing into this system that we call the United States of America. My stand on the illegals is very, 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 if you will, precise. Let's build the fence first. That's number one. We've got to stop the flow of illegals into this country before we can do anything about the ones that are here. The E-Verify system needs to be utilized. I think we need to see some more severe penalties for people that willingly and knowingly hire illegal aliens. People that are forging documents for these illegals to be able to obtain jobs need to spend some serious time in prison because they are literally, they're just stealing from the taxpayers is basically what they're doing and allowing that to continue to happen. Our laws are very, very, very precise in terms of what should be done with people that are here in this country illegally. They should be deported. That's what our laws say. We're seeing an administration that refuses to enforce these laws. A classic example is fighting the Arizona immigration law. Their effort to stem the flow and stem the tide of illegals into their state that's costing their state millions of dollars every year. Not only that, it's creating all kinds of public safety issues down on the border. They want the federal government to enforce the law, so the people there requested the legislature to do something about it on the state level. We've got to enforce our laws as they are written today. Until then, there's no need to talk to us about any other legislation that we can pass, because all that's going to do is lead to another level of bureaucracy that on the taxpayer dollar that's not effective in enforcing laws. That's my feeling about the whole thing. Legal immigration, totally different issue. This is a nation of immigrants. I think one of the biggest obstacles that we have for people that are here legally is to be able to obtain their citizenship. We're seeing 20, 25, 30 years people applying for citizenship for this country and can't get it. And it's not because they have background problems or anything else. It's because of the massive bureaucratic nature of getting your citizenship done. Unless you have really strong connections to a congressman or to somebody that's politically connected, it's almost impossible to become a citizen of the United States if you're here legally. And I think we need to streamline that process a whole lot more than we need to start talking about bringing undocumented workers in as citizens of this country.
Thank you.